It's a very interesting question, like what can art offer to science and what science can offer to art? Artists distorted scientific notions and they applied them for their own creative quests. On the other hand, there were applications of science that perhaps pushed it a little bit too far. When we reduce aesthetic experience to just biological mechanisms, that limits the creative abilities of the arts. I grew up in Lithuania, which is a Baltic country, now part of the European Union, but previously it was a Soviet republic. And I grew up in a family of biologists where literature and the arts were revered. My parents were avid readers, particularly science fiction, but also some philosophical books. And a lot of this kind of literature was banned. Sometimes they would get a book from friends, like for just one night, and then you had to pass it on to the next reader. So from that I developed an interest in literature, but also an interest in science, because another childhood passion of mine was looking at scientific books in my parents' library. A lot of historical books that had fascinating images of cells and other kind of microscopic images. I was just really interested in how scientists were able to capture these images and how these images are revealing to us the mysteries of life. My book is called Psychomotor Aesthetics, Movement and Affect in Modern Literature and Film. It is a historical study that focuses on the early 20th century, and it looks at the ways in which writers, filmmakers, and actors and performance theorists of that period looked at psychology of their time and neurophysiology in order to imagine expressive movement. Towards the end of the 19th century, psychology introduced all kinds of techniques to capture the micro movements of the body. And they began connecting all of this bodily data to internal psychological experiences. This methodology and these images began to circulate in the broader cultural sphere, and they began to inspire artists and cultural theorists. Filmmakers like Lev Kuleshov wanted to create more effective acting. There was the jazz era. The artists wanted to capture the dynamism and energy of modern life, and for that, they wanted to have a different type of acting. As they said, that would make a legible ornament on screen. They went to the institutes where psychotechnics was being developed to use some of the tools to create these performances from actors that would be much more dynamic and effective. Right now, neuroscience is defining the ways in which we think about what is an emotion. There are fields called neuroaesthetics and neuromarketing, which analyze the way in which people perceive art or perceive products. In my work, I'm looking at the precursor of neuroscience, the field of physiological psychology, which likewise was using the data of the body to make this really grand predictions and conclusions about how do we experience art. Women's blood pressure is hiking when they're watching a scene of romantic conquest. That means all women must like romantic stories. And in hindsight, we are able to see a lot of methodological flaws, how the biases of the scientists who designed the experiment are then influencing the types of results. There is a big danger in not using the wealth of information accumulated by such traditional methods of humanistic inquiry as historical contextualization, as formal hermeneutic analysis. The human psyche is very, very complex. I think that humanists have a lot to say to neuroscience, and I hope to establish a better dialogue between the arts and the sciences in our day.